Bourne Supremacy was the second installment of this Bourne trilogy. It came out in 2004, and this one was not directed by Doug Liman. Instead, they got Paul Greengrass to make it. And in this movie, it takes place a little bit after the Bourne identity. Jason Bourne is now living with Marie far, far, far away, but he's still remembering some things about him. He only has a basic understanding of who he is from the Bourne identity. He's still remembering some things, some missions that are haunting him, and he has trouble understanding what they all mean. And it gets even worse when one day Karl Urban, another assassin, comes after him for reasons unknown, and spoiler alert, this is in the first 15 minutes of the movie. If you've somehow not seen it, spoiler alert, Marie gets shot by Karl Urban, and now she's dead. And Jason Bourne is really pissed about this because this is one of the only people he knows. He loves her, and now she's dead. So Jason Bourne goes down a really dark path in this movie because he wants some revenge. Now, when I first saw this movie a long time ago, I always thought that this was my least favorite of the Bourne movies. Even though I really enjoyed it, I just thought it was my least favorite. Having watched it again recently, I think this movie actually improves upon the Bourne identity. In fact, all of them do. But I'm really shocked by saying that because I originally thought this movie was just really good, but now I think it actually is better than the Bourne identity. I think this movie is super good. One of the main reasons why this movie is better than the Bourne identity is because of the direction by Paul Greengrass. And I love Doug Liman, and I loved his direction in the Bourne identity, but in the Bourne Supremacy, Paul Greengrass' style just fits in so well with this movie. And it fits in well with the Bourne Ultimatum as well. But we'll talk about that in that review. As I was saying, Paul Greengrass did an excellent job directing this movie. And I don't know if this was the deal with anyone else, but the way Paul Greengrass edited in this movie, his direction, how there were a bunch of quick shots, and the camera was never entirely still, that honestly made me kind of feel frantic inside, like I had to stand up and pace around my room for a bit. And I think Paul Greengrass did that to add to the tension of this movie, and he did an excellent job doing that, especially with his action sequences. The action sequences here are probably even better than the ones in the Bourne Identity. And once again, I love the action scenes in that movie, but in this movie, there's just so much improvement going on because of Paul Greengrass as a director. There are 2 car chase scenes in this movie, and both of them are exceptionally well done, and they both involve Karl Urban chasing after Jason Bourne, but they kind of end in different ways. The first one ends in a big dramatic bang when Karl Urban shoots Marie, and then the car crashes into the river, and we get that really heart-wrenching scene where Jason Bourne has her dead body, like trying to wake her up, see if she's still alive, but it's just not happening, and you just see that shot of the body floating away from Bourne, and that was, oh, that got to me. And then the scene later on when Karl Urban's chasing after Bourne once again, but that ends in a really big action bang. Like, there's so much sound going on, the music's high, and the volume is up with the sound effects, and the car screeches, and then the gunfire, and then all of a sudden Karl Urban's car just smacks against a wall, and then all of that noise just kind of dies down. And even after that, my heart was still pounding. That's how intense that action sequence was. And then it ends with Jason Bourne seeing Karl Urban just battered up. He's got glass on him, blood everywhere, and he's pointing the gun, but then he's like, nah, not worth it, and he just walks away. That was really intense, and it's all because of Paul Greengrass' style. His style really does fit in well with all of these movies. And there's one scene earlier in the movie where Jason Bourne is fighting another assassin in the Treadstone program, but that assassin's hands are zip-tied, but he's still able to fight Bourne. Some people said, oh, the camera, it's too shaky, Paul Greengrass didn't perfect his shaky cam yet. I honestly thought the shaky cam was good, and I'm not a person who's for shaky cam. I prefer it when an action scene has a still camera, or if you are going to use shaky cam, as long as you can still tell what's going on in the scene, and that's what happened here in this movie. I could still tell what was happening in this action scene, and I think Paul Greengrass actually did a really good job directing it. I didn't really think the shaky cam was all that bad, honestly. And speaking of Matt Damon, as I mentioned, I think the Bourne character kind of changes in each movie. The first one, his performance was very relatable to the audience because he doesn't know what's going on, like a first-time viewer. But in this movie, because he knows more about himself, and when a tragedy strikes, he goes down a really dark path. And I think Matt Damon pulled off the performance of this Bourne in a really really good way. He did a very good job. And I think Karl Urban was also a really threatening villain, not only because he does kill Marie, but because of his skill set. For that big car chase that I mentioned, there's a scene involving his character that actually kind of shows off what he can do, and that was actually really intense. I think Karl Urban did a very good job, and I also did not even remember that it was Karl Urban when I watched it the first time. I was like, oh, that's Bones! What are you doing here? Where's Spock? Another thing that really is better than the first movie is the CIA stuff. In the first movie, you had Brian Cox and Chris Cooper. Their goal was to eliminate Jason Bourne because him being around might cause some information to get out that they don't really want because it involves them doing some stuff they probably shouldn't have, so they want to get rid of him. And now in the Bourne Supremacy, we have Brian Cox back, and he's leading the manhunt against Bourne to cover up his tracks. But then you have Pam Landy, played by Joan Allen, who just wants to do her job. She just wants to find Bourne because she's interested in the guy. So you have these two conflicting viewpoints, the person who's just doing their job and the person who's just doing it to cover themselves up. And that honestly made the CIA stuff even as intense as the action sequences going on, because I like the CIA stuff in the Bourne Identity, but let's not kid ourselves, that's not really intense. It's just really intriguing plot stuff. But in the Bourne Supremacy, it's very intriguing plot stuff, but it's also very intense. And I just wanted to say before I close out this review, the ending of this movie is the best ending in all of the Bourne movies. We have a girl whose parents, she thinks, killed themselves, but it was really Jason Bourne, and when Jason Bourne remembers that, he goes to her place, and he basically tries to apologize for it, trying to reconcile, because while he's remembering stuff, he realizes how much he really doesn't like the assassin life. He wants to become a better person, and that scene where he's apologizing to the girl, that was honestly really heart-wrenching stuff. It kind of got to me in the feels. Guys, the Bourne Supremacy improves upon the Bourne Identity in many ways, and the big part of that is Paul Greengrass's direction. And I love Doug Liman, but I'm so glad they replaced Paul Greengrass with him for this movie because he added so much. And I'm so glad they didn't replace him for the Bourne Ultimatum, and I'm so glad that he's doing Jason Bourne. This guy really does know what he's doing behind the camera. I'm going to give the Bourne Supremacy an A+. It has better action scenes. It has really great performances by Matt Damon. It has a really intriguing plot, and the action scenes could not be even better. This movie is so fast-paced. As soon as the movie gets to the 5 to 10 minute mark, there's already action going on. That's how fast-paced this movie is, and I really enjoyed it. But if you've seen the Bourne Supremacy, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and I'm going to have my review for the Bourne Ultimatum up, because tonight I'm going to be seeing Jason Bourne. Full warning though, I'm probably not going to be able to get that review out on time because there's stuff going on in my life. The only thing I can promise is that I'm definitely seeing Jason Bourne tonight. It's just I'm probably not going to have a review out that Friday. I'm probably not going to have a review out for that weekend. Box office talk probably, but I'm going to be a little busy. I'm going to get the review out as soon as I can though. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.